Hello, Woodville Tompkins FBLA members, DECA members, Woodville Tompkins students, parents, anyone else who happens to be watching on YouTube. I'm Dr. Cook. I'm a business teacher at Woodville Tompkins and the advisor of FBLA Club. We are so excited today to be hijacking Woodville Tompkins' YouTube page to host our FBLA meeting. And in place of our regularly scheduled FBLA meeting activities, we are having an extra special meeting today in which we have a number of very special guest speakers together for a panel to speak about marketing. At this time, I'm going to turn things over to our panel moderator, Jessica Levitt. Thank you very much.
Oh. Hey everyone, welcome. I know you guys can't see me, I'm behind the camera. So I'll just be a big happy voice. You can imagine however you want me to look. Maybe I have blue hair, maybe I have purple eyes. That's just a place to start, you know? I work with Alaire Homes Savannah. My job there began doing freelance marketing for them, and it's grown into a full-time position doing marketing, strategy, hiring, admin, light accounting, project management, anything you could think of, really. And I'm very happy to be here with a few of my colleagues and friends who also work in marketing. So I am going to let them introduce themselves to you and tell you who they are, what their work is, what their area of specialty is, and any other facts that they might want to share with you. Erica, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Erica Kelly. I am co-founder of a local creative agency here in Savannah called Flourish Collaborative. We offer both branding and interior design for small businesses both here and around the world. But my specialty in the company is brand strategy. So we work with small businesses to really ask all of the bigger, deeper questions about who they are as a business, what their purpose is, and ultimately what they look like in terms of branding before they would get to hire all of these lovely women in terms of marketing and PR. So we're kind of at the foundation and core of what makes a business great and why people should care.
That'd be me next. My name is Erin Clay. I work for a local building supply company, Gary Lumber, here right down the street, not too far. We've been in business for almost 95 years next year. I am their marketing coordinator. Kind of like Jessica, I wear a lot of hats and play a lot of roles, which is why it's exciting. Every day is different and it's never dull. I do anything from their social media accounts to keeping the website up to date, community events, PR for those community events. I do help with hiring occasionally with the different Indeed, things like that. So I do a lot of different things for the company, and I obviously talk with my hands a lot too. But besides that, I would say my specialty would be the community involvement part of it and getting out into the community and making sure that they know that we're local, we're family owned and operated, and we've been here for a long time, and we are your building experts. But by doing that, I integrate into the schools to build up our future leaders in the industry, as well as different industry-specific partners like NAWIC, National Association of Women in Construction, AIA, which is the local architects group, as well as many others, Home Builders Association. So I would say my strength would be the community involvement side of marketing.
Hi, I'm Louise Williams, and my area of specialty is PR, public relations. Just a little bit of background, I actually grew up here in Savannah, and after many years in Atlanta, I moved back here 6 months ago, and my connection to Jessica is that I'm an independent PR consultant, so I work either on my own with clients or maybe with one or two other people or a small agency, basically trying to get them publicity, trying to get people to cover their story. And one of my clients is Alaire Homes in the North Georgia region. So that's how I know Jessica, and I'm fortunate to still be able to work with those clients in Atlanta. But yeah, my job is to take all this background information about who the companies are, look at all the great things they're doing in the community and try to promote that and try to get other people to talk about it. So you see it in the news or you have a blogger writing about your client or your company, and it makes people want to run out and buy their products and go to their events. So that's PR in a nutshell. I'm sure we'll get into more of that.
Yes.
And I am Diana Morrison, owner-operator of a promotional products company here in Savannah called Ad Specialty. We've been in business almost 34 years. Started the business out of the trunk of my car, and now there are 12 of us. We are custom decorators and imprinters. So if you take the brand that she creates and the brand that she gets out there within the community and the brand that she shows how much integrity it has, I'm the person who gives the long-term exposure to all of those things by some targeted products that remind you of the messages that all these women have put together. So I'm kind of the end of the line for
You guys
most
sat in
promotions.
like kind of perfect order.
I know. How did that happen? How did that happen? But I would say my strength is a little different than theirs. I have some specific strengths that I feel like I bring to my company, but I really feel like that my best skill is hiring good people, training them well on what our business is all about, and letting them go, and just letting them do their thing, and giving the autonomy to be creative and, you know, make their own way, but yet always be there for them and promote them within the community so that I bring up my full team, not just me as the owner.
Yeah, great. Well, we're super excited you guys are all here. I'm super excited you guys are all here, for sure. And as you guys can already tell, each one of them is going to bring such a different kind of perspective to the table, just based on their personal experiences, their years in the business, the different facets that they've gotten to, and just everything that they do. So I'm really excited to dive in with you guys. I want to make lots of time for student questions. So we're going to do a couple of questions that I kind of I gave them a little homework so they could, you know, look super smart in front of you guys. And then we'll put them under pressure and see how they do with some, you know, improv. Okay. So, you know, I think a question that Dr. Cook always asks that I love to answer and I love to share with students is, when you were in high school and you were these students' age, did you imagine yourself in the marketing world?
I'll start by that. So I wanted to be an interior designer in high school, and that was what I was training for. I had, thankfully, my high school offered a lot of technical drawing classes that were architectural focused and interior design focused, and I really, really loved this idea of taking a space and getting behind the user's journey of that space, really figuring out, okay, what is the primary use of this space? How do they interact in the space? So I really loved the psychology behind three-dimensional design. Well, so I went to school for interior design. That's what I'm formally trained in, and I worked in that field for 5 years after school. But I ended up working for a small mom and pop agency that was more multidisciplinary in their services. So while I was still working on interiors, they would get business owners who say maybe owned a restaurant that would come to them and say, you know, we want you to design the restaurant, but we also really need help with this branding piece. We don't really know how we need to be perceived before people get to the restaurant, what the story is, how can the brand and the interiors speak to each other. And once I figured out that that was even a thing to talk about, I was hooked. I loved that idea. So, you know, as much as, you know, I still love interiors and my business offers that as a service, what I really, really enjoyed was getting behind the psychology of the consumer from a branding perspective. So because of my experience in interior design, I bring more of a holistic approach to branding because I understand how it's not just a two-dimensional thing, a brand, right? A brand is how people interact with your business and how people interact with what you believe in. And so that can either stay on the internet, that can stay on ads, that can stay on web, or that can go into a restaurant or a boutique. And so I guess short answer to that, I had no idea I'd be in marketing, but it kind of makes sense that you kind of track what my interests were. So all roads lead to marketing, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way too, but yeah.
So as usual in Erin's fashion, I'm over here in left field. I was a history nerd, I guess as you would say, guru in high school and in college, because that was my major. I wanted to be a teacher. I was going to teach history. No idea what grades I was going to teach. So no, I had no idea I was going to be in marketing until I was my junior year in college, and I was taking my history classes, and which is a hobby and passion of mine, but I realized it was not what I wanted to do. When I actually realized what I wanted to do was when I was working a college job at a tanning salon, and I was the sales manager, and I realized sales, which is a whole facet of marketing, was my passion. And I was not only marketing and trying to sell the products that the company offered to its clients, but you're selling yourself. And that to me is what marketing at, the top of the chain, that is what marketing is you're learning how to sell yourself, how to present yourself, and then that is funneled into how you sell and present your company or who you work for, whether it's your company or you work that service for another company. So really, high school, no. I was going to be a teacher, which is wonderful, and then it was going to be history, and then moved into college, still was with history, still graduated with a history degree, but along the way realized that sales, thus marketing, PR, events, things like that, that was who I was deep down. So that's how I got into it.
I sense a trend here.
Yeah.
I was going to law school. And, so I went to college, left Savannah, went up to Boston College, got a big coat, and I was an English major, so I thought I just need a good liberal arts background to set me up for going to law school. Do a lot of writing, write a lot of papers, I like to argue, I guess. Somewhere along the line, that dream went away. And sort of similar, I took the route, sort of followed behind some of my siblings, and I thought, well, I've graduated from college, I can't afford to live in Boston, so I'm living in Atlanta with my sister and two other sisters, don't do that, working in retail, and I thought, I don't want to go into retail management, nothing wrong with that, but it just wasn't a passion, so I thought, well, I'm going to go back to school, and so I went back to the University of Georgia, and got a master's in communications where I took, PR classes, I took advertising classes, I took media buying classes, we did some volunteer events and ended up with an internship somewhere that, like one of my first jobs out of that, it was a small ad agency, and they said, do you know how to write a press release? We've got this art gallery that has this beautiful glass art and these beautiful photos, so I wrote a press release, we sent it to the newspaper, they ran it, and I was like, oh, that was cool. And being, I imagine the tanning salon is probably a small business. Being within a small agency, I got to do a little bit of everything. And I just sort of decided I really liked that PR aspect about it. Like you were saying, figuring out what is the story we're trying to tell, who's the customer, what is that customer, reading, watching, doing, where are they engaging, which from when I started my career to now has changed dramatically. And so that's been kind of fun to watch, but it's still sort of the same fundamentals, is figure out, where is it that you're going to find that customer. In fact, I'm tickled by your interior design background, because one of my clients for many years was a commercial carpet company, which is really exciting. But basically the way they go into companies is an interior, that company will hire an interior designer to design that office space. So we want to be where those designers are. So they wanted to be an interior design magazine or architecture magazines or magazines for building facility managers, which that's exciting stuff. So, but anyway, the thing, and I guess being an independent consultant, I've had clients all over the board. I've had friends who might work for an agency and have some healthcare clients say, oh, I really love that. Well, I'm going to go be a PR director for a hospital. And I just kind of never want to do that. I like being a little bit all over the place. So if you looked at all the clients I have, there's not necessarily a through line other than, nice people that are good to work with that have a good story to tell. Because if you don't believe in it, you're not going to do a good job marketing the company. If you're, and I've turned away business before because I thought, I just can't pick up the phone and try to sell this to a journalist. Mm-hmm. Sorry about that later when the camera's not rolling, because they were all lovely companies.
So mine was a bit different, and theirs as vastly different as our age gap is between them and me. I feel like the days were different then. So I too went to a vocational high school and I was supposed to be in cosmetology. So, I have always been that person who has way too many questions. And I wore my cosmetology teacher out, and she was like, you just go next door and ask the barbering teacher that question. I am just worn out with your questions. And then the barbering teacher said, will you go down and ask the welding guy those questions? I'm just really tired of all your questions. So by the time they got me through all 13 of the opportunities that there were in my vocational school, I felt like, you know what, I know so much about so many things that I've learned about asking all these good questions. I realized that that was a very important thing to me, was to have knowledge about what people really do and why they do it and why they want to do it and how to get their message out. And so when the opportunity came for me to go into the promotional products business, it just felt natural because our client base is very vast, like we talked about. It's just a group of different people, but having the ability and no one slapping your hands and saying, I'm really tired of you asking me this question. Will you go somewhere else? You know, within our client base, I can just ask other people questions and find out more about their business and their opportunities and how they want to grow their business and what message they want to be more targeted and more long exposure. So mine was a bit different, but I never envisioned myself being in marketing or owning a promotional products company when I was in high school. But I am very, very grateful for the vocational education that I got in high school because it allowed me to understand so many of my client base and what they do.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, you guys really went right into my next question. So fantastic. It's like you're reading my mind, which is wonderful. I'm just going to ask one other question, and then I think we'll have plenty of time to do some student questions. So we'll get to those. But I think that it might be helpful as we all have this. Well, we only have a finite amount of time in a day, right? And I know that students feel this. I know teachers feel this. I know working professionals feel this. People have family obligations. You have obligations to your partner. You have work obligations. I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a different direction on this question, which is I'd love to hear from y'all how you manage your work, your personal relationships, your own interests, and how you do that works for you. I know people are at different stages in life, so you can also talk about those different stages and how you have kind of ebbed and flowed, if that applies as well.
Go down the line. I'm in seat number one. Okay, so Flourish Collaborative, this is our 5th year in business. So we're a really new company from, you know, when you think about the life cycle of the company and how we plan to be here for 120 years. But so the first few years of starting your own business and running your own company, balance is a word that doesn't really exist. There's a lot of late nights, there's a lot of sleepless nights, there's a lot of happy tears and sad tears as you kind of navigate the bumpy road of how do I take my skill set and this idea that I have and feed my family with, you know, the current situation, not everyone knowing about you and you're trying to build a client base. And so there's just a lot that goes into getting a business off the ground and staying there. And we passed the 4-year hump, which is apparently a thing. If you're still there after 4 years, it's a pretty good sign. You'll be there for another 4. And both my business partner and I are both full-time with the business, and we weren't to start. So balance for me now is a bit different than when we first started. I think that having a dedicated workplace where your work stays there, whether it's a room in your home or an office, and you have to set boundaries with yourself to leave it there. Flourish has a really great work culture that we started from the beginning, and it's even in the signature of our emails that we send clients, and it says, you know, basically, you're always going to get a timely response, but some days it's going to be quicker than others. You know, we put our personal happiness before, you know, any sort of emergency, and it's basically to say, we're in marketing. This isn't a heart surgeon's office. This isn't, there, and maybe PR has a little bit of a different, they're putting out fires all the time, but for someone in the branding and design side of things, there are no emergencies. And I think you have to set that boundary for yourself to say, when I clock out of work is when I clock out of work. So now my work-life balance is that. It's a lot more balanced. We have an office, so work stays there. And, might put in a few late nights every now and then for a big client, but we're in a steady enough place to where, I have plenty of time for other things. So, but it wasn't always the case.
Right.
And I will say off of that, starting out, I'm 31 years old, so starting out fresh out of college, however old that is, 20, 22, 23, 24,
Yeah.
I don't know these days. You dive head first. You don't have any responsibilities. A lot of the times you don't. I didn't have kids. I had a dog. I wasn't married. I wasn't in a serious relationship. And so you work and you work and you work because what else are you going to do? I mean, you'd go out at night or do whatever you want to do with your friends, but that you just dove head first into your career to try to get you somewhere. Then you move into married life and you got to make some time for your significant other, which, is a little easier when you don't have kids. So, you work, maybe instead of working until 8 o'clock at night, you work till 6. Then you get home and have dinner with your husband or your wife, and you move on from there. Now I have an almost 4-year-old, and when that kind of turned my whole life upside down in a great way. But working in the industry, I work in construction, it never sleeps, I sometimes feel like. But also, I was in way more organizations than I am now. Because I like to give 110% to each organization. When I got pregnant and realized, okay, Erin, you're not going to be able to give 110% to every organization. So my work-life balance came, I had to sit down and write down all the things I do. And then I had to look at it. Okay, that has to do with my industry. Will that further my career or my company's reputation? Okay, if it doesn't, then why do I like doing it anyways? And I had to sit down and look, and I did. I had to remove myself from some of the organizations or activities that I did for work to know that I would have time for my child, and of course my husband. And so I pulled myself back from a couple different things and really put my heart and soul into, like, I picked 3 things that I wanted to stay extremely involved in. It doesn't mean that I don't here or there involve myself in other organizations, but so for that work-life balance, I had to realize the importance of putting yourself, you don't have to be doing 50 different things. You can do 3 things and do them well. And anything outside of that may have to do with work a little bit. A lot of times what I do is I think, okay, if this is something I'm doing, and let's say the event's on a Saturday, is this something my kids would like to go to? Is this something my husband would like to go to? And if it's a yes, then it's like, then hey, yeah, I don't mind helping plan it because then it's an experience. It may bring work into the personal life, but it's something we all enjoy. But I do fully believe work-life balance. When you leave the office, or you leave that last event of the night, you leave it there, you get home, you don't look at your email, you don't answer phone calls. Those phone calls and those emails will be there the next day. And I think a lot of people through COVID have realized that because they had to kind of sit down and go, okay, I'm working at home. This is my office. This is my living room. They are not the same. And so work-life balance is extremely important. And I think as you move through your facets of life and your different steps in life, from fresh out of college to being married to kids to whatever is on past that, because I haven't gotten there yet. You just have to you have to be flexible to constantly be changing your work-life balance based off of where you are in your life.
Yeah, I will say, so for the bulk of my career, I've worked for myself. I mean, I worked for a number of different PR agencies, where there were a lot of nights or weekends, because it's, I guess, similar to a law firm. When you're working, for the most part, you're on the clock, and somebody is paying for you to be doing whatever it is you're doing. And I worked for one agency in Atlanta that was small. We did a lot of entertainment kind of things, so we represented, Lakewood Amphitheater. So if a concert came in, we represented Fox Theater, we did Cirque du Soleil, we did all these big events and openings. So a lot of late nights, but also, a lot of times you would be expected to be in the office first thing next morning. I remember the first year I worked for them, Cirque du Soleil was opening the day after Thanksgiving. So I had, came down to Savannah, had Thanksgiving at my grandmother's house, and then I had to leave to get back because I had to start, calling media people in the morning, who's coming, what time, all of that. So which is great when you're young and you have the energy. But it's interesting when you talk about, your family life. So I had worked for myself for many, many years, out of an office in my house before I met my husband. And so he's now retired, which is a whole other thing, but his schedule was, not always 9 to 5 himself. And so I could usually structure my day that, if we wanted to take the dog for a walk at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I could. But then for about a 4-year gap, I went to work full-time in an office at a foundation. A friend of mine through the PR world was helping this foundation build out a marketing and communications team. And she said, come work for me. And I think my husband just didn't understand, like, well, you work 9 to 5, right? It's 6 o'clock. I'm like, no, I'm still doing something. Although I did have to reprogram my boss a little bit because she's like, okay, what if we had this whiteboard? What do we have to get off this list so that we don't have to work the weekend? Because we don't have to work over the weekend. It will be here, it was a
It'll always be there.
But she had run an agency where, if she worked 6 hours on Saturday, their client paid for that time. So, I think you have to sort of figure out what works best for you. And, think about that when you're, interviewing with a company, ask them, what's your company culture? Because there's some companies where if you're not at your desk at 6 o'clock, you're slacking off. But there's other companies that if you're at your desk at 6 o'clock, why are you at your desk at 6 o'clock? They will be here tomorrow. Go home, right? But also learning, working independently, learning my clients' schedules and when they prefer to work. When everybody first got a smartphone or, BlackBerry, and I had a client, someone who, had a young child and would have to get home to pick him up at a certain time, and then she'd have dinner, get him to bed, and then she'd go sit at her laptop and work. And I'd get these emails and I would respond. And I finally had to have a conversation with her saying, do you expect me to respond or can it wait? And she said, no, I am clearing my calendar. And on the other end of the spectrum, the now retired CEO of the foundation I work for, she would be at her desk by 6:30 in the morning and shooting off emails. And if it was like, do not respond, because then she goes, you're wait. And I had to have that same conversation to say, I hope you know that I know the difference between, hey, Louise, I'm going to speak at this breakfast meeting at 9 o'clock, and my speech is not in my folder for the day, help, versus how many people are signed up for the event we're having Thursday night, when it's Monday. And so, and I said, can I trust that, you're not going to bombard me with things expecting an answer if it doesn't have to happen before I get it to my desk in the morning? And yeah, I think similar COVID, people have figured out. I had a colleague that, for a while was like, okay, my workday cuts off at this time. And then she realized I'm teaching my kids their school, I'm doing this. So she had to shift her whole system around. She's not happy about it, but then now they're all about to go back to the office. So how's that going to change everything? So I think you have to figure out what works for you, but so that you know what kind of culture, what kind of company culture you want to be a part of. If I had gone into law, I would have been working for long hours, and if I wanted to get ahead in my career, I would have had to just do it.
Wow.
So
not to beat the dead horse that we've all kind of said the same thing. I want to see if I can take a little bit of a different spin. We all have our own priorities, but priorities change as our lives evolve, like Erin mentioned. But our priorities have to change based on the industry we go into. We're a worldwide society right now. Why do you think they call that the World Wide Web? That www doesn't really just mean some www. And so different industries are working at different times of day. And what I might send someone to Asia that says, I need so-and-so and so-and-so, it may be almost 24 hours or 12 hours before they respond to me because they're sleeping when I send it to them.
Right.
And there are industries in the world that, you may have a shift in what your schedules look like. But no matter what that schedule is, you have to set your own priorities. And I'm going to say this because it's no November. There's nothing wrong with saying no November. I am a prime example of someone who has the hardest time saying no. If there is a good cause and a good reason, I really struggle with saying no. But when I say yes, and I start to second guess myself, I said yes to this, but what am I giving up to say yes? And if it's giving up having dinner with my husband or my children or my grandchildren, what is the value of that yes versus the value of what I'm missing? And I think there's a huge piece to that. And no one can determine that but you. And you have to be in control of your own needs, desires, and what's important to you. So there's also nothing wrong with being me, asking too many questions of in an interview of saying, tell me what the expectations are.
The
Tell me
real
what your work
expectations.
culture is, because I am that person you were talking about. We have an alarm that goes off in our business at 5:30, and at 5:35, I'm yelling, get out, get out, get out. Your wife can attest to that. Everybody go home, because a person who walks out of a business or doesn't walk away from their desk or their email or their text or their phone or their whatever, if you don't walk out in a period of time to be able to give what you need to give in the other aspects of your life, you end up not being a very good employee. Because there's only so much of you. And you can only do so many things. So now I'm going to get off my soapbox and go preaching and say that what all they said, yes.
Yeah.
But you got to have a job that's right for you.
Well, I really appreciate those answers. I hope that you guys also got something out of those answers. I know it wasn't specifically around marketing, but I just think it's a lifelong lesson of having some boundaries and choosing some priorities. That's always going to serve you. Okay, now I want to open up to some questions from some students. We're running a little short of time because of all these wonderful nuggets. So I think what we'll do is have a question, kind of maybe we can almost rapid fire, and one person can just answer it, and then we'll go on to the next one, if that's okay. And then we can also make some time afterwards if we have some one-on-one questions or anything else that you guys might want to know. Who would like to start? Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm also a member of FBLA, but I'm also the president of CSA, where all the designers and engineers who come and join together. My name is Flavi. So, as president, I want businesses and I like outside people to know about our organization and, make events and, create something, right? So, which positions in businesses would I contact?
Erin, this one's right up your alley, I think.
Honestly, it would be the marketing person, because they're the ones that kind of vet, okay, this student is coming to me, I'm trying to think of a technology company like that.
Maybe like SC Data, like Destiny.
Exactly. So we have a member in our organization, Destiny with SC Datacom. She would be the person you would contact, because she'd say, okay, this student's come to me. Let me get all the information I need to get before I bring it to my boss. And then it's her job to market it to her boss, so that her boss is like, great idea, let's look up and make something happen. So ultimately it would be the marketing person, because it wouldn't be, you got to think about it. You do it wouldn't be HR, it wouldn't be somebody that hires people, because they're not going to have any idea to do about that. It's not going to be, sometimes it's going to be the president of a company, but really they have people that help kind of get it to that level. It's not going to be the accountant. They don't, at some point they'll be involved, but not at the beginning.
Yeah, at some point they're going to probably write the check, but yeah.
Right, so it's going to start with the person that has their fingers in the community, which is going to be the marketing, PR, that type of person.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
We have an idea for you too, so we'll hook you up with that. Little does Destiny know, but she's about to know. Okay, next question.
Okay, so my name is Darren Davis, and I'm part of DECA and FBLA, but I'm here representing FBLA. So one of my questions, you both briefly touched on how these last 2 years, basically quarantine affected. What major changes did it make to any
Like in the marketing and PR world, like how we've got information out and such? I'm gonna let you.
Personally, it affected me. I moved back to my hometown. So I can work from anywhere, and I'll touch on the time management issue again too. I think it almost got people overscheduled because we found these wonderful things like Zoom and like Teams. And so instead of just walking down the hallway and say, was it Darren? Like saying, oh, hey Darren, you have 5 minutes when we down society. Let's schedule a 1 hour Zoom and talk about this thing. So I think, it made people a little less effective. But in terms of communicating, strictly from a PR perspective, I was working for a foundation that works with United Way, and we create, we had all these people donate. We had $28 million to give away. So my job was to, put together a media list and send it to the TV stations, the, radio stations, newspapers, that kind of thing. And one thing, I said, you've got to figure out who your audience is and where to find them. Well, our audience for that was basically everybody. Like if you work for a nonprofit, you need to know that you can come to us and we have money to give. If you have money burning a hole in your pocket, you come to us and you give us your money. If, you're a volunteer or you're on the board of a nonprofit, you need to know about this. And the interesting thing with that is all of a sudden, every reporter was covering COVID. So it might be, maybe not sports guys, but, or sports people, but, people who didn't normally do that were covering it. And then a lot of them all of a sudden had, digital media specialists because a lot of news organizations had to really vamp up their web coverage, their social coverage, because it literally, information was changing by the minute, whether from a medical perspective or these companies are shutting down, or here's what the mayor says today about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And so it's just staying in touch with that of who's doing what. And some media outlets will be good about saying, hey, Louise, I'm going to pass this on to Jessica because I've been pulled off on something else. And even, right now here, I'm working with a local nonprofit that raises money for children's cancer. And like one reporter that, normally would have done something during Childhood Cancer Awareness Month is up in South Carolina dealing with whatever the latest in the, Alex Murdoch case. And now they're all down in, Brunswick with the trial. So it's just a matter of being nimble and really just like paying attention, reading the Savannah news, website or whatever and figure out who's covering what. And also kind of doing a quick scan of the media before you send something out because, I've had situations way in the past before the internet and all that where I've sent something to a newsroom or called the newsroom saying, hey, I'm following up on that holiday gift wrap special. And they're like, there was just a school shooting or, one time it was literally like, we just bombed Iraq, I've got to go.
Right, yeah.
Before y'all were born. But, just being mindful of who's covering what and just staying nimble,
Yeah. And obviously everything went to digital too.
Yeah.
I think there was no knocking on doors or having meetings. You just had to hope and pray that email went through, which everybody was paying more attention to emails. So,
Right.
Well, I'll add to that too. So COVID, especially for small businesses, if your local in-person experience as a business, whether you sell service or product, did not perfectly translate to online, and people couldn't get that same experience and that same product as easy and as quick as they could in person, you didn't make it. And that goes for restaurants too. I think a lot of local businesses had to really sit down and really have a hard talk with either the stubborn people at their upper part of their pyramid or whatever of saying, this whole social media thing that you just kind of dismiss, and this whole website that looks like it was in 1999, you can't wing it anymore. Like you've got to be up to date and you've got to allocate. And they didn't want to do it because of course funds were tight, everyone was pinching their wallet. But that was the thing that you had to invest in.
and the people that did survive.
Right, and so for the creative services world, I mean, I'll speak for myself, we did just fine because I think these businesses were finally realizing, oh my gosh, I need to get my messaging right, and I need to invest in some ad money, and I need to invest in some website design and PR. So I think we were in a prime position, but these businesses had to have a real hard look at, listen, it takes me 22 clicks to buy something off your website that looks like someone took it with an old iPhone. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of businesses had to really get to terms with, it's 2021, like we got to get.
Or you go to their website. I had this happen. I went to some restaurant's website thinking, okay, I'm going to go there and get takeout, and should have called ahead, but on their website it said, this is our hours today. I get there, well, they cut their hours. And I think like there was literally a poster in the, on the door that said, check our Facebook page or something. So like their website, they should have put a banner on the web saying, our hours are, changing every day. Please check Facebook for the latest.
So communication was crucial, and if you didn't know how to communicate, you restaurants closed, you felt like that. I mean,
for sure.
it just was the reality.
But like,
Great.
And everyone too had to, pivot a little bit on what their product lines were.
Right.
You know, restaurants had to close down their menus because
Right.
they could only do so much with so many people. And companies like us had to decide what our product lines were and how we went back to fulfilling orders and sending them to people working at home rather than a one spot ship something to an office. It had to go to 50 different places. So I think everyone, every industry that didn't pivot to what the needs were didn't fare well. I agree.
Okay, last one.
So, Mrs. Morrison, I'm Elise. I'm representing the FBLA Club. You mentioned something about starting to grow your business. What advice would you give to a beginner entrepreneur who is trying to grow their business?
So if you're a single entrepreneur, my answer would be think about everything you do and what value it really brings to you before you spend a minute on it. If you have a team within your business, I would say what I did earlier. Make sure that you hire well, train well, everybody understands the product line and the culture and what the expectations were, and empower them to do what needs to be done. Never be a micromanager.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Erica could probably speak to this as well. I mean, Louise could speak to this too. My little 2 cents on this is relationship building is key. Find your people, do whatever you need to do to keep those relationships up, make time for them, foster them, nurture them, because you never know, especially in Savannah, this town is tiny, that you're going to come full circle with these people again. I mean, Erica and I met because I owned a publication. The company that she was working for decided to buy an ad from me. We photographed them. Then she came to me saying, hey, I think I want to start this thing. What do you think of this idea? And then we just kind of were able to come up with some different things and brainstorm on them, which I didn't know that when I met her, you know? And there's always those kinds of things that are going to come up in your life. So just keep your eyes open, keep your heart open too. Like, trust yourself. When you meet someone and you're like, wow, this person is really awesome, it's worth figuring out how to keep them in your life and nurture that relationship.
And it kind of goes back to the whole marketing yourself thing, you know. Don't ever dismiss somebody because you feel, well, they're not anywhere close. Like me and Diana, I sell buildings like wood. I sell wood and windows, and she sells wearables and marketing materials. And you know, if the first time I met her, which was many moons ago, you know, like if I had been like, well, we're nothing alike, like our businesses are nothing alike, then we wouldn't be where we are today. And so the better you market yourself, put your smile on, shake the hand, make eye contact, follow up, keep the business card, keep the contact information. You'd be shocked by how, like she said, it all comes full circle. Absolutely.
And I would just add, just keep doing what you're doing, you know, so you're in these organizations to hear from people and to network with people and possibly get, opportunities out in the community. You know, when you go on to your career, or if you go on to college, find, like the PR Student Association or the Young Professionals Group. Like I was on the board of the American Marketing Association for a long time in Atlanta, and they had a DECA partnership where they would, connect these young people. But because you never know when those, like one of the early jobs I got, I had my picture in a monthly newsletter because I was volunteer member of the month or something. And when I got to that interview, my future boss had that newsletter sitting here saying, when your name came across, it was familiar, and I'm glad to see that you're involved. And a lot of I went to visit the University of Georgia Communications School for an event a couple of years ago, and they have an ad agency. It's something, John, I wish I could remember. But they have like a student ad agency that they find a local business. It's like, let us do a PR campaign for you. So find something where you can go out and, either do a project or something and build your portfolio, as I said, but then you have something to show for it. To say, hey, we built a Facebook page for this group, or, plan an event.
With your friends too.
Yeah.
Okay,
To be an intern.
Right.
Ask for that.
Yeah, good point, Diana. Okay, I got to go ahead for one more question.
Okay.
So my name is Shia, and I'm representing DECA and the marketing pathway. And I know you do have to do a lot of branding for your businesses. So how how important is branding for you, and what type of technology do you use to promote your brand or your company?
Yeah, that's you.
That sounds like an Eric question all day
How
long.
important is branding as a brand strategist and designer? It's crucial. It's step one of business building, if you ask me. You asked why branding is important. Okay, so that I guess leads into what is branding, right? So sometimes people say branding is the thing that people say about you when you're not in the room, right? So branding for a business is really about positioning your business in the way in which you want to be perceived. And there's some give and take to that. There's a lot that we do with businesses to ask those deeper questions, which these ladies love to have answers to before they get their work started. What's the purpose of this business? What are your values as a business? What drives you as a company? What do you seek to do in the world? What change do you wish to make? And this goes for if you're selling toothbrushes to if you're a nonprofit. These are the same questions you should be asking no matter what the business is. And really get into the heart of who is this business serving? Why does it matter? Why should that person care? Getting into the target demographics of that business. And once we figure out, okay, this is what the business feels like, this is maybe what it sounds like in terms of its brand tone and how we're going to copyright for the business, how the brand is going to talk on Twitter, on its website, on marketing, then that's when we get to say, okay, what does this business look like? And how can we make sure that the visuals that the business has meets with all of the inner workings of that brand purpose and values. So it's kind of this marriage of the inside of the brand and the outside of the brand. And so a business will go through a branding process with the design team. That's when the tangibles that they get from that are, you know, your logo package, your colors, your fonts, your kind of aesthetic direction, and all of that helps inform all of the work that these ladies do because they want to know, okay, what does the business do? Why would anyone care? And then when I design your marketing collateral, can I use purple? Can I use papyrus? The answer is no, never. You know, so we kind of set what's called the standards of how the brand operates within online and offline. And I forget the second part of your question.
And what type of technology do you use to promote your brand?
So promoting is going to be more in their field. So I'll let one of you answer that one.
Well, I would just say, just from a branding perspective, that foundation that I work for, when I first came on board, they were doing a rebranding, and it was like orange and green and yellows, and they just have done a new rebranding, yes, where they have a new font, they have a new logo, different colors, different standards. If you do a PowerPoint, you have to use certain colors. Technology for
That would be like social media, like,
Yeah.
you know, the technology is the importance of a website. I know that some people think social media has kind of overshadowed websites, but how do they know about your social media? They Google you, and either your social media pops up or your website. So somebody said it earlier, they need to communicate. They need to be on the same, what your website says, your social media needs to say. So technology would be all the social media, from LinkedIn to Facebook, Instagram, maybe Twitter sometimes.
Depending on your business,
Depending on
TikTok.
your business, exactly right. And there's so many more I could talk about. TikTok, I think that's something big now. But in terms of technology, it's all of those, but they need to be cohesive. You know, so what one says, the other needs to replicate.
Well, and even just, you know, one of the questions Justin had asked that we didn't have a chance to get to was, you know, what are your clients spending money and time on right now? And so last night when I was at that PR event, I was just doing sort of an informal poll. And one person said, well, they're finally starting to spend money again. Like everybody's coming out of COVID, realizing, okay, we don't have to spend money on, you know, rebuilding our offices and all that so that everybody's distant. But another one talked about this whole trend in sort of blending technology and sales. And, you know, as a consumer, you may not even understand it. That, you know, like I go through Instagram and it's like, oh, you might like this. Well, I click on it. Well, they want my email. And I can't get into the, you know, to look at the products until they have my email. So then they've captured me, you know, so that's a lead generation or something. But then other things where you go to a website, it's like, ooh, I like that jacket. I'm going to click on that. Well, you might think that this was just somebody writing a review of, you know, think about how the iPhone, whenever there's a new iPhone, they do these huge events and then all these people write reviews. Well, they might say, well, do you want to buy this iPhone? We'll click here. Well, whoever read that review might get a piece of the money on that. You know, that's this whole new world that I don't even understand, but, you know, by the time you guys are in your careers, I mean, who knows? You already think of something and it's on your phone, but, you know, just how those, you know, new ways of people buying things, you know, that nobody, you know, sorry, so you're
No,
not
I was
gonna
just saying,
necessarily
so,
go to
like,
a store
essentially, you
or,
have
you know,
traditional media,
yeah.
you have digital media, which encompasses social media now,
Mhm.
and then that also encompasses influencer marketing and affiliate marketing. If y'all are on TikTok or Instagram, y'all know what influencer marketing is. You're being sold to without really realizing it.
Yeah.
But that's a way in which a brand will promote itself. It kind of just falls into those categories.
Yeah, I think it depends on the product too, is how far into technology you go, you know, what the product is, what the market is. I mean, some things still have to be a little more face to face than technology. But, you know, technology being the wave of where we are and as it evolves into the future. But I think knowing your good mix based on your demographic of clients as it relates to your product is vital.
And again, knowing your audience. I mean, you know, my mother is 89. She's very technology savvy, but thought she went on CVS's website and scheduled her COVID booster and showed up and they're like, well, did you get an email back? She's like, no, but it said I was scheduled, you know. So that's not, you don't market to my mother by telling her she's got to do something online, you know. She needs somebody where she can pick up the phone and talk to a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a one size fits all
Right.
solution. Otherwise, we'd all be out of a job, right?
Right?
Well, great. We spent more time than we were allotted. Worth every minute. Thanks so much for hosting us and having us. I'm always so impressed with the caliber and curiosity of the students here. So I really appreciate you guys hosting us and being here with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Bye.